Yo, what the deal? It's your boy X.E.L.O. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you. Yes, you. Thank you for coming back. But if you are new here, please do me a favor and like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and I'll let you know when I drop another video. Today, what I'm going to be doing is comparing Cakewalk and Traction Waveform. Who you got? Let's get into it. All right, so I want to start this video off by saying that both of these DAWs are absolutely free if you look at it through the bigger picture and scope of how these DAWs actually work and what they actually give for free, right? So let's start with Cakewalk. All right, so here we are on the Cakewalk website, and you can actually just download Cakewalk, and it's only for Windows. So if you do have a Mac or if you're running Linux, you don't have that option to get Cakewalk. It does come with a couple of instruments in there. It comes with a whole bunch of studio effects, and it gives you a lot of really good options to record with and even to do MIDI with as well. So it is basically a full-fledged DAW for free. All right, so here we are on the Traction Waveform, and yes, this DAW is actually free as well. You have unlimited tracks. There's no limitations or anything like that. You have some things you can actually expand on here. They have a launcher now. The thing about Traction Waveform, if you want to get all these extra perks and things, you have to pay for those extra perks, but the DAW itself is actually free. It also works on Linux, Mac as well. So you have Mac, Linux, and Windows, which gives this a little bit of an upper hand there. So for this part of it, I would say I would definitely give it to Waveform. All right, so here I'm going to start with Traction Waveform. This is what you will get. This is their start screen for Traction Waveform. It is kind of slick looking. I like the way that you can actually have all these things in here. You have the option to kind of play your tracks if you wanted to. Right, it gives you a really quick option to kind of listen to whatever you have already created in here. I think that was really cool of them to actually do that. You can browse your projects really easy. All of this stuff is kind of set up right here on their main screen. So let's take a look at Cakewalks. All right, so when you open up Cakewalk, this is what you get, this get started screen. You have your option for your projects, your recent projects, your existing projects, and some demo projects. That part of it, I would have to give that one to Traction just for this opening, just because it's just a little bit better. All right, so here we are in Traction Waveform, and what both of these DAWs have the option to do is create a template, so you can kind of work your way through the templates on here, which is really cool. They do both have arrangers. This one actually has a chord generator, so you can actually generate chords really easy inside of Traction Waveform. I would definitely have to give them the upper hand when it comes to that. The workflow inside of Traction is not as good as Cakewalk to me. That's just my personal opinion. I don't necessarily like the fact that I can't really, you have to kind of move on both sides of the track in order for things to kind of work. So if I wanted a MIDI on this track, I would have to set it up over here and say, hey, this is going to be a MIDI track. So I want to have my complete control working that, right? And I can add a MIDI clip. And now I have a MIDI clip here. And it doesn't always start at the beginning. As you can see, there's like a little gap here. And I don't like the fact that it does that. If I'm going to be doing working on here, I want to just have it to be working. And as you see, you can stretch it out, which is no problem at all. But then if you want to actually get an instrument, you have to go all the way to this side in order to add an instrument into the track. And let's say we just do, I'm just going to do a Keys-On Classic just to make it fair for both sides. And there you have a Keys-On Classic, right? All right. And then you have to arm the track. So like it's kind of interesting the way they have it set up on here. Right. So now you have your Keys-On Classic set up and it's going through here. When I'm saying the workflow is kind of interesting in here, you have this section over here where you have your actions. So you can have actions for each thing that you're actually doing. You have files here so you can find out where your files are. You have your search up here so you can search for any of your sounds or anything. So you can do your sounds from here as well, but you have to drag it all the way over here in order for it to be inside of the track, which that part I'm still not 100% sure why they did it that way. All right, so here we are in Cakewalk, and this is my default for Cakewalk. And if you are interested in this theme, I do have it available on xelohh.com. Just go there and you should see a section that says Cakewalk themes, and this is absolutely free. You can download it. I have a light version and I have this dark version. I will say that Cakewalk makes it really, really easy to set up buses and sends and auxiliary tracks, whereas in Waveform, I did have a little bit of difficulty finding out how to actually do it. You have to have a setting in here in order to actually do it. So you have to do the aux send in order to actually send to like another track. And I thought that was kind of weird that they made it almost like adding an effect in order to actually send things in here. There's not necessarily like a drag and kind of drop into like group thing to make it into submix tracks. So this will give you an option to kind of create like a whole group for itself and do a submix, but it's not really smooth, right? And that's what I'm trying to lead toward. Like, it's not really smooth to kind of do that. Another thing that I don't necessarily like about Traction Waveform is, let's say I wanted to grab this and drag it down to another track. I can't do that. It won't create another track just by kind of just grabbing and dragging. You have to actually create a track. So you got to go here and you got to make a track, or you can hit the shortcut, T, to actually create a track, or you can make several tracks if you want to, which is not that big of a deal. But workflow wise, when I'm actually recording, I don't usually like to do this. I like to just have everything going wherever I want it to go. Right. So that's just one of those things that bothers me about Traction. All right. So, I mean, it makes it really easy in Cakewalk to add a track. You can either right click in here and insert an audio track. You can insert a MIDI track, or you can even insert an instrument. So they make that part pretty easy to do, right? And then you just have basically a drop down here, and I'm going to go and find Keyzone Classic, right? And just hit create, and Cakewalk will create the MIDI and set up for Keyzone Classic, right? So you hit on here, and here is the Keyzone Classic. Right, and it's just that simple. So now you have Keyzone Classic set up in here. If you wanted to do the MIDI, you can just double click in here and it'll bring up your piano roll. They make this part of it so much easier than a lot of other DAWs. In my honest opinion, I just think they just made it easier to do. And then make like a MIDI item. You just basically just make a note, and there you have your MIDI item right here. And you can kind of stretch it out if you want to whatever bar you want it to be, right? And you double click to add a note. Really simple stuff to kind of do inside of Cakewalk just to set things up. So I'm going to pull up Traction Waveform piano roll real quick. So if I double click on this MIDI item, here is the piano roll. Let me take the mixer out. Let me bring this down, because this part is where the velocity and things are. And they have different views. So you can click on this views right here and you can show all the notes. So here are the notes in there, right? If you want to add a note, you double click and you can add a note. And you double click to add a note. So really kind of easy. The same thing like Cakewalk, kind of double click to add a note in here. It's just the other editing things that just make it a little bit more complicated to kind of do than it is inside of Cakewalk. You have your option for your transpose here, so you can kind of set your transpose. It's not as smooth, I would say, as you would put inside of like another DAW. You do have an option for grooves, so it'll actually make grooves for you, which is really cool. And you have this option here to do chords. So if I click on this, and let's say I wanted to make all of those minor sevenths, so it'll automatically make those chords, which is really cool. The chord stuff is really dope, I think, inside of Traction Waveform, whereas you don't really have that option inside of Cakewalk to do chords like that. But the problem that I have is kind of like, if I wanted to shrink this or stretch this out to make it, the 2 bars, like there's not really a way inside here to do that. And you have to do it from this part up here. So you have to stretch it from here, this actual block, instead of actually doing it inside the piano roll, which I didn't understand why they did it that way. But that's the way they decided to do it. Whereas in Cakewalk, if I wanted to kind of stretch these out, I can just do that. By just holding down control, I can just grab this, and as you see, it'll stretch it out to those other bars or make it smaller, right? Like that option is not available inside the piano roll for Traction. Like you have to do it through up here. So I'll have to stretch it up here. And you can do that in Cakewalk as well. Like you can do, so you can hold down Shift and Control, and you can be able to drag it, drag your MIDI that way or make it smaller. So yeah, I mean, you can do them both ways, but it would be cool if you could do it inside the piano roll. So I got to give the piano roll to Cakewalk. All right. And as far as like the step sequencer, it makes it really easy in Cakewalk to do the step sequencer. You can kind of just pull up your VST and you can just click on right here where it says step sequencer. And then you have the step sequencer set up on here. The little blocks make it really easy to add things in there. And you can right click to remove them. So super simple, super easy to kind of set things up inside of Cakewalk if you're going to be using the step sequencer inside of here. So let's look at Tractions. So in Traction, you can go down here to this views again, and you click on this, and it gives you an option that says drum grid, right? So now you'll have your drum grid. This is basically their step version of like the step sequencer for Traction. It's okay. I mean, it's not something, to really write home about, at least not to me. I think that it has some things that you need to kind of get used to on there. But I do like the fact that if you say, let's say I did a step clip, right? So now you have a step clip here. This is a little bit different, and I really can't stand that it doesn't just start at the beginning. It drives me crazy at times, right? So you have steps, and it'll tell you if you're on your like hi-hat, and it'll go according to whatever the grid is. One thing that I don't necessarily like is that it only gives you like this bar down here, and you have to change these views in order to actually get it to like extend out. I don't know why they made it so complicated to do like simple things in here. But yeah, you do have an option to kind of just, add your hi-hats in here if you want, if you had, a sound going there. You can do your hi-hats and your drums right here inside of this kind of step sequencer window. I think it's a little sleeker than it is inside of Cakewalk, but at the same time, it still kind of makes it a little bit difficult in order to kind of just really get into a groove with your drums. So for that one, I'm probably going to give it to Cakewalk for their step sequencer as well. All right, so going through the search functions on here, like I just clicked on my new kits on here, and it'll take some time for it to load up. As you can see, the little circle is going. This is one of those things that I'm not 100% sure why Traction is as slow as it is. I thought Cakewalk used to be slow, but Traction is super, super slow when it's searching for stuff that should just pull up. Like it's a kit that I already have set up in my bookmark. So why does it take so long for it to pull up? I have no clue or idea. So let's go into the classic cymatics, right? I'm just going to do the hip hop starter kit, and let's find melody loop. Let's just go with this one. Right. I think it's cool that they do have like a little waveform down here, but you can't expand it, you can't edit it, you can't do anything with it, which is kind of almost pointless in a way. But I'm just going to drag it into the session. All right, so editing inside here is a lot different than a lot of other DAWs. You have like little options. They're like so small, right? This is the dragging button. This is the looping. So you can actually do your looping here. This is how you drag and create a link, like a linked copy. And this is how you show your clip effects menu. Cakewalk also has an effects menu as well. And you can render the clip. If you wanted to put this somewhere else, you can render it just by grabbing this little one here. So there's like a little dot, like right down here. And this is how you do your fades. So you can do your fade from the end here, this little dot, or you have a little dot in the beginning to do your fade. If you wanted to shrink your audio, it has like, it turns like to the little C kind of option. I don't know if you really can see that on the screen, but it's really small. That is how you kind of edit it, by pulling it back and forth. So if you have the little hand up here and you do this right click up here, it'll give you the same options that you have up here to copy, and you can ripple delete, you can duplicate, you can even reverse the sample right here. Gives you an option to split the sample, or you can just hit S to split. You can remove silence from it, and you can actually split to stems if you have the pro version of Traction Waveform. If you don't see that, that means you don't have the pro version. And you have an option to add clip effects. This is the part where I don't necessarily like that they did it this way. So you can do a time warp to warp the time of the sample itself. You could do a tape stop and start effect on here as well. I thought that was pretty cool, but I just don't like the fact that I have to go through all of this to actually get to do this. So you have your fade in, fade out, your step volume, and you have volume itself. So if I click on volume, so now it'll make a little line for the volume. And now you have this little option on the side here to add another effect, or to go through the menu, or take away that effect that you just added. And here are the settings. So that part about it, I'm not 100% sure I like it. It's just almost an unnecessary addition to me, but you know, that's just me. So you can add a pitch shift in here. So now, as you see, it'll create a whole nother lane of that same exact thing to do a pitch shift. And if you wanted to add another one, let's say we did a reverse. So it'll reverse this one down here. This one will be pitch, and this one will be volume. So I don't know why they did it this way, but this is the way they decided to kind of do it. And then you have like the little green button here for the effects, and you can remove all the effects. And it's going to say, are you sure? I'm going to say yes. And it's going to bring it back to the original audio editing. All right, so in Cakewalk, it's a little easier for me to find stuff, I guess, because I'm used to kind of the whole setup for it. All right, and we're going to go back into cymatics, and we did hip hop, and we did melodies, and we did this one here. All right, so the difference is, as you can see, Cakewalk does not put it toward the tempo. It does have an option to do that. All right, you go up here to where it has the media, and you hit this little drop down, right? You can preview at the host tempo. So basically this will try to put the tempo of the track into whatever tempo you have, right? And as you can see, it's faster now, right? But when you actually drag it over, it's still the old tempo. That's the problem that I have. Right? So it's not matching what we just heard. And that's one of those things that I don't know if they'll ever change that, or if it changed inside of Sonar. I doubt that it did. There's still no waveform where you can actually see the stuff. The search is still really slow inside of Cakewalk as well. But their audio manipulation is a lot easier to use and get with. Like if you wanted to kind of drag stuff and kind of manipulate, it's so much easier to do that, right? The only issue that I have with Cakewalk, once you do that, as you see, it has like this little percentage right here. You have to make sure you bounce at the clip, or it'll start glitching. So this one is kind of like an even draw for me for these two DAWs. I don't necessarily say one is really better than the other when it comes to like the audio manipulation. I would probably give it to Traction Waveform if you have the stem separation, just because you have that extra option. It does automatically fit to the tempo of the DAW itself. But when you're trying to edit and manipulate things, I think Cakewalk may be just a little bit better at it than you have with Traction. Where I will give Traction is that they do have a sampler and they do have a drum machine inside there, whereas Cakewalk does not. All right. And before we jump off here, we're going to talk about the most important part of actually doing music, and that's the export. This is probably the best export currently out there. The only one that I feel is better than this is Reaper's. Hands down, you can do so much with this. You have tags that you can use. You can set your own presets. You can create a folder wherever you want to on your computer. You can do the tags if you click on the tag, so you can do by name, tempo, track. I have a whole video explaining all of this if you do want to check this out. You can change the format right here. Really, really simple. You can click here to say what you want to export. You can do like the entire mix. You can do just tracks. You can do just the outputs. You can do just clips. You can do just the buses if you want to as well. You can also do stems really easy with this. And down here, it gives you the option to kind of set up how you want that to go. If you didn't want track effects on there, you can just remove the effects here. Really simple, really easy. You even can use a 64-bit engine. And you can even do a render in real time, where you cannot do a render in real time inside of Traction Waveform. I've tried. There's no option for a real-time render. I don't know why. Right? You have an option down here to do the range, whatever time section you have. You can do the entire project. You can set a loop range if you want to as well. And you can add multiple cues in here as well. So you can do a different cue for different things. If you want to do like a wave format, then you say you want to do like an MP3 format, and then you want to change like the sample rate on one, you want to change the depth on one, you want to do the stems out, then you just want to have just one master or main. You can add different cues in here, super easy if you wanted to. So this is what makes this one definitely stand out. I think the export inside of Cakewalk is probably the second best that I've ever used. Right, when you first get in here, it'll automatically render. So make sure you uncheck this, so you just don't start rendering as soon as you open this up. I thought that was really weird that it did that. You have an option to like remove silence at the start and the end. You can change your bit rate. You can normalize. You can adjust your RMS, which is cool, right? But these are all the options you have. That's it. There's nothing to really make you want to kind of just keep going back here and export. So you have to keep coming back every time you export. So say you want to do stems, you got to come back in here and do the stems. You have to come back and do like the wave. Then you have to come back and do the MP3. Whereas in Cakewalk, you can just do all that inside the render queue and just do it at one time, right? So they only have this render at one time play speed. They don't have render in real time. Here's the separate files. You can do the separate files. They make that easy to do as well. You can only render clips, and you can only render marked regions if you want to do that as well. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where it stops. And you can add an acid tempo, note info. That's pretty cool. So basically this is like making a some metadata for your track. That's pretty cool, right? So it doesn't necessarily give you everything that Cakewalk does when it comes to rendering. So that's why I will have to definitely give that one to Cakewalk as well. I want to know what you guys think. What are you guys' thoughts on this Cakewalk versus Traction Waveform? Which one are you actually using? Let me know below in the comment section which one you're actually using, which one you'll actually try. Would you try Cakewalk if you're actually using Traction, unless you're on like Mac and Linux? Will you actually be trying the new Sonar? Like I said, I haven't seen many things that are changing there. I know it does have a sampler now, whereas Cakewalk does not have a sampler inside of it. So these are things that you definitely want to think about when you're looking for a DAW. But right now, like I said, both of these DAWs are totally free. Both of them have their pros and cons. But I want to know in the comment section below, which one are you choosing? Do you have Cakewalk or do you have Traction Waveform? Let me know. All right. And with that being said, that's pretty much the end of this video. And once again, it's your boy, X.E.L.O. Till next time, people. Peace.
AutoRewind.